I wanted to go over this really cool tool that I saw someone post on LinkedIn the other day, and let me bring up the window for it. This is on Gumroad. The artist is Gnome Wizard. The tool is called the GW Key Manipulator, and it's available for purchase. Their freelance license and a larger studio license. This person is a senior animator, rigger, technical animator, yada yada yada. Very cool stuff in the tool set. I do wish I had a little bit more information in the tutorials on like how to use it, and I think that's on the way. But I thought I would do, the thing that I've noticed the most about this tool, and I haven't looked at a lot of these other things. We have creating additive layers, fake constraints, multi-layers, swap curves, and I'm guessing some of the stuff is like, there's a rotation order, but really it's in this fixer section, which the best way to describe it is just creating temporary pivots that are either just a locator that's a different location for your control to pivot from while retaining the visual animation that you already have, or these aim locator pivots, which are, again, you can just create one of these and have that control always be aimed to this locator. So I thought I would demonstrate it with some mocap that I'm cleaning up. This is something I shot on Cartwheel myself, so the quality isn't 100% great, but you can see there's a few things that I want to fix. This footstep's a little gross, but really the one that is the biggest one is right here. What I want to retain, which is important in cleaning up mocap, is like even though it doesn't look like it, this I can tell is like you want to roll off the outside of the foot, right? I want to do this, and I don't want to go through and like hand key over and over and over again just to get that working correctly, frame by frame. And I don't want to use all of these, even though these can be super useful. Like look at that pivot, it's great, but now I'm separating out the information from this big IK control. And this is something I bumped up against at work a couple times, where I was like, well, I have all these SDKs. Like, why can't I use them? Why can't I use, roll? Why can't I use rock? Why can't I use these separate controls? And specifically for motion capture, but in general, you're going to be, baking on ones, you're going to be importing data, and you're not going to have that information on these controls. It'll get baked onto individual bones, but then you can't edit that very easily unless you have those flags back. So anyway, what this control, or what this tool does, let's just narrow it down to the fixer section here. There we go. Let's just focus on this one. Is we're going to select that control, and then we're going to hit this little locator button, and this is going to give us our temporary pivot. Actually, you know what? We're going to go back, and I'm going to pick a spot where it's on the ground. There we go. Let's do this right. Create locator, and it's a little misaligned, but that's all right. We can fix that. And we're just going to line this up where I want it to pivot from. And again, this is just for this instance. I want to fix some rolling off of the toe. But, for example, if you are making contact with an object and you want the pivot to, be on the fingertip or something like that, or there's a million situations where this could be useful. Let's just go with that right now. We're going to get too bogged down in the details. And then once you do that, you hit Control Fixer, and this keeps all your information. So if I visually, let's scrub through this, nothing has changed, but the information now is from this pivot point. And this is just going to make it a lot easier to clean up. Let's focus on this step off first, because that's really the one that's bugging me. And again, what I want to do is, this is basically my footstep on frame 11. I want to hold that. Let's delete until I start to take off. So let me paste this on to 20 where we start to take off. I'm going to delete everything in between. Let's make sure we hit auto so there's no weirdness happening between. And then I will just start to roll this off with that control. And you can see that my pivot is here, and I'm not having to use any of these smaller controls. I'm not having to use the SDKs on the main control, which, obviously are not showing up here because we're on this temporary pivot, which is over here. By the way, if you create these, you can right-click this control button and hit select, and it'll have, all the controls that you've created. It's really cool. You can save these and bring them back in, from file to file. It's not like just in the file that you're working on. But definitely want to use the select one, because in the outliner, when it does create it, there's a lot going on here, and you just want to make sure that you're selecting everything in case you're shifting keys or something like that. So anyway, let's go back to the workflow. We're going to start to roll off here, and we need to get off the ground. Okay, now what's happening in the rest here is just a weirdly broken ankle, and I want to get into this, where the ankle, or even something like this, where we're dragging the foot the other way. So I'm going to fix that first, just right here. I'm going to eyeball this, and we're going to worry about the translation pops in a second. And now this is something else we're going to have to work on, because we get over the footstep in X and Z, but we haven't made contact yet. So I'm either going to have that just stomp down on this frame. We could do something like this, drag that key back, and maybe add something like that in there. You know what? That's good for now. Let's just leave that. So now let's work on the translations. You can see translate X from here. This is the pose I took off from. We're just going to go ahead and scale that. And we know we have to change the rotate Y. There we go. That's a big one. There we go. And now this is in the mocap data, but maybe we do want to change this. It depends on, if I get rid of this and I'm like, oh, I actually don't want to lose this kind of information and add some cool texture. Maybe I wouldn't. I can tell that I'm popping up in X. Let's make sure that's X with gimbal. So it's X and Z. That's interesting here. So one thing I, wasn't really prepared for is that this control or this locator might not be in the perfect rotation order. So, right now I am, I'd have to change two different axes. Really, let's just focus on X though, because that is the main one. Z is in here, but let's say X. We can see how much that pops up. Look at that heel. This one goes way up. There we go. And then we need to translate up a little bit. And this is a matter of like where I put that locator, because I put that like on the actual, let's go to this side, on the actual toe point. But if I'd put that maybe closer to the tip of the control, we might avoid these spots where I'm digging into the ground. Let's keep getting this. And again, you can do all this stuff with the controls that are in here. Like you can grab this control and it'll do stuff, but the problem is you're just splitting your work. You're splitting your work between different controls. And it gets very messy to find out, hey, what did I do and where is this motion coming from? Now we kind of pop up in Y here. Now I've gotten kind of what I wanted out of the pivot, so I'm going to go ahead and bake this, and you can see that all that information is now still on this control, but it's back in its original pivot point. So now I can go in here and there's no, I can see the weirdness in why, we're dragging up, but we're also, we don't need to go up that high. We can start to actually come back down because it's not a big stomp, right? It's a stumble. I guess we haven't really looked at that, but it's not a very strong step. We can take a look at, again, the X. It's a big pop still. And, maybe I would go back in here and I would say, you know what, I like this one, but maybe before we take off, maybe I would do that, add that control. But again, I'm splitting controls, and just for workflow reasons, insanity reasons, I don't love to do that. And if I miss something, I can still go back in, with that pivot in this location and roll out. But yeah, this is where we're at now, and that's much, much cleaner. That's what the mocap was really telling us, but it wasn't showing us. You know what I mean? We were supposed to roll off that side ankle, and either something in the data is messed up or I'm not the best actor. But anyway, getting off track, this is a very cool tool. A little bit pricey, but definitely I can see that there's a lot of stuff in here that's been added since I think the original videos were created. I have not gone into any of these. So swap curves, base, fake constraints, multi-layers, animation library. I mean, from the names alone, you can kind of tell what these are and what they do. But this was definitely the one that caught my eye because it's very, very useful to one-click something like this and have it set up.